One of them wanted to be the security guy. He claimed he was a security guy.
Welcome to Security Guy Radio. What's your name?
My name is Gail Essen, CPP, PSP. I'm with Honeywell.
That's a lot of acronyms. What do those stand for? For my nieces and nephews who don't know, what's that stand for?
What that stands for, CPP, both of those are ASIS board certified. CPP stands for Certified Professional Protection.
Certified Protection Specialist.
Correct.
Okay.
And PSP is Physical Security Professional.
Oh, I always wondered what that was. I don't have any acronyms. Yes. Well, I'm junior, but that's all I have. So, what do you do for them?
What I do for Honeywell is we represent our enterprise level clients. So we bring in solutions that meet their multinational, they're usually in highly regulated industry, so they have to have solutions that can help them not only deliver operational efficiencies, but also ensure that they're compliance-based.
Well, that's a big challenge. I used to work at Fox and Disney, and I used to have to hire regional guys. And that's a lot of regions, by the way, right? All across the country.
It is.
And, you know, this is back in the 90s. There really wasn't this enterprise view. There are a couple companies that did things right. But Honeywell's been in the space a long time. And, I mean, Honeywell is synonymous with security and alarms and all kinds of things. Since they've moved to this enterprise level, what are the challenges in the compliance area? Because I think every state now has all these new regulations, and if you get it wrong, as the end user, you got a problem.
There's a huge financial implication, and there's a reputation implication to the companies. So compliance is the number one driver, and for the companies who implement security in their strategy,
right,
as a core strategy, those are the companies that really understand the nature and the impact that security has to their operations.
Now, you're finding that more companies are doing that?
Yes.
Okay. Now, what's interesting to me is that it's driven by the law, by regulations,
yes,
not by the motivation to protect the enterprise first and foremost, right? Sometimes you get this. It's like, I have to do it, I guess I will.
In some cases, it is to drive value to their core customers. So for example, if you're a company that produces baby formula or a product that's going to affect the public, a medical device, for example, you do want to make sure that what you're putting out there to the public is the best, it's safe, it's quality. And so compliance, that it's not a problem. They really do drive towards safety and security.
I stand corrected. That's a good observation, because we're talking about manufacturing, we're talking about consumer products, not guarding the office building.
Correct.
And paper.
Yes.
Or something, yeah.
Yes.
Okay. So talk about some, you don't have to name clients per se, but what is kind of a big client, and how do you help them across a wide enterprise?
Well,
worldwide, I assume.
Correct. Global accounts, multinational accounts, regional accounts, and really what they're looking for us to do for them is to really help them build a multi-year technology roadmap, as well as helping them understand how the products can deliver to their corporate strategy, how we can connect what we're doing, how we can deliver an ROI, how we can improve operations, how we can increase the effectiveness of their manpower, how can we reduce incidents, how can, by using the systems and the technology behind it. We also go in there and we help them really build security plans. We'll come in and we'll do initial risk assessments and vulnerability assessments. So it's an end-to-end solution. It's not just about the product. In fact, the product is really a secondary thought.
That's a good point.
We really look at the corporation and what they're doing and try to identify and understand what that means, and then bring in the appropriate solutions. The solutions never come first. The solutions come after an intensive look and feel what that company is doing.
Now, who drives these at an enterprise level? I mean, at a lower level, it's purchasing, well, we can't afford it. Sorry, there's
Right.
a decision made. No boardroom
Yep,
meeting, right?
right.
At a higher level, who drives those issues?
At a higher level, those decisions are really done at the C-suite level.
Interesting.
So, what you look to penetrate is the CSO. Most of these companies have a CSO.
Right.
They're connected with the CFO, the CIO. So the C-suite first. They get the value proposition. They understand how this is going to help their business, how it's going to help their clients, and help them position in the marketplace. So they are the ones that you work with first. And really, it's a collective. It's really a family. You have IT involved, you have physical security, you have facilities, you have operations, you have HR, you have a lot of entities involved in the final decision making and the direction of the path.
I'm really happy to hear this. I mean, I've been doing this a long time. I've been in the business 32 years, white hair, right? And I've had, Fortune 50 experience, but when I was in the Fortune 50 arena, this was not at the C-level. It just wasn't,
Right.
for whatever reason, right? So I'm happy to hear this is coming up to that level, because really that's the only way it can be effective.
It is.
Nobody cared what I said as the director of security. I'm sorry, they just didn't,
Right.
But if the boss came in and said, we're going to do this, it happened. So, I mean, funny example is we initiated ID cards at Fox one day. Nobody wanted to use them. And all of a sudden, Mr. Murdoch shows up at the gate, uses his ID card. Boy, everybody wanted to use them.
Right.
Not because they were afraid, but because they wanted to please him. That's how it all works.
Mm-hmm.
So when we get involved at this level, how do you handle the challenges of, for say, going across different countries? Let's say it's company A who's in 10 countries with 10 different cultures, 10 different languages, but you really need the same security plan, mostly at an enterprise level to start, right? That's where your policies come. And then the policies drive down performance, right?
Correct.
How do you handle that part of it?
Well, that is a challenge, because when you're talking about in multiple countries and multiple regions, there are trade and different compliance, different ways of doing business out,
Yeah.
EMA, APAC, everybody, it's different than the way we do it in the Americas. So there are different challenges. You have to really work well with the local entities in that country, in that space, and understand what that culturally, how they operate, because that's the key thing. You cannot be successful if you're not dealing in their subculture. Otherwise, it's not going to work.
Well, I agree with you 100%. I mean, it works at a micro level at a big corporation here, right? So when I rolled out ID cards, they had not had ID cards in 75 years.
Right.
And all of a sudden, who's this idiot trying to make me wear an ID
Right.
card? I had to pre-sell it. I had to get buy-in agreements from all the bosses and the department heads. And then when they bought into it, it flowed better. But it was a challenge to without the cultural buy-in, all the technical bells and whistles and all the rules, nobody cares.
Correct. So it's conformance to the policy is at a minimum level. That's what you want, but you really, in order to get it implemented, you have to understand how they operate, how they think, and what is, and really make them understand the value to them, what it's going to do for them, and how it's going to improve their life or make it safer, easier.
Now, you mentioned return on investment. This is a big driver right now.
Yes.
Security used to be considered a cost center. I've always thought it could be a profit center, or at least a break-even center, right? How do you guys look at that? How do you present the return on investment to C-suite?
Easy.
Good. I like easy questions.
Yes, to me, the ROI is a good conversation, because if they see security as a cost center, they're looking at it completely wrong. I give you several examples, but one is, it connects to compliance. So if we don't have a process or something in place, and you have a violation, you have an incident, that's going to cost your company to shut down. You're going to lose revenues. You're going to lose reputation in the market. And then you're going to get the fine on top.
Right.
So all of that combined is a huge cost compared to what a minor investment would be to implement the mitigation strategy that should have been in place to prevent that in the first place.
Yeah, you still see the data breaches. Target. I love Target. Anytime I go to buy something, Target has it. Right. And I was very disappointed in their breach, because it didn't need to happen.
No.
And this sort of thing, I think, helps the ROI argument, because that's going to cost them X amount of dollars per breach of data, when the whole system would have cost them $2 million.
Correct.
See what I'm saying?
Correct.
Now, how do you sustain? Here's a big challenge I've always found. Honeywell comes in, we work with compliance, we change the culture, we get it all wired in, everybody's happy. Talk about sustainability.
Sustainability is a good one, because really you have to, when you're doing your original assessments, you have to maintain those assessments. So you don't just come in and do one assessment, call it good, implement the mitigation tactics, and then move on. That's not how it works. That's what we do. That's our sweet spot, because we come in and we'll help you build a multi-year roadmap, and it's
Right.
not just around technology. It's about policy building. It's about changing the culture, because sometimes it's not there yet. Oftentimes these companies they're a conglomerate of companies that have been come together through acquisitions, and
Well, that's
so
right. All different cultures, business cultures.
correct. So you have
Yeah.
a lot of different thoughts. They were raised up in one subculture for security. One has a higher level than the other, and so you have to get everybody sort of evened out, and that takes a while. And so they're building that roadmap, building that multi-year plan. That is what we do, and we do very well.
Now, do you offer a service, a pay service or whatever, that assigns somebody as what the best word would be? The project manager, the contact, that
Single
kind of
point
comes in and audits your own system for them. Because I found you're not really an installer. We're talking your strata level, okay, C
Right.
level. But you are an integrator. And you
Correct.
may have to integrate the local camera guy who put this in and make his cameras work with whatever system you're using and such. And what happens is somebody puts a camera in and then they leave.
Right.
And then 3 years later, how come we don't have video? Because the camera broke, we didn't fix it.
Right.
How do you handle that sustained maintenance? And I guess testing is a good
Right.
way to describe the system. Really challenge the system, make sure it's working.
Yes, so as part of any solid plan, there is a built-in service side, a component to it. There's professional services at the onset, but there's a long ongoing service plan that goes with it. So every year we come in and we'll do annual tests and inspections. Typically what we do in these large enterprise solutions, you can't just go in and say, March 1, we're going to test everything.
Right.
So over the course of the year, everything gets tested at least once. And then what happens is you build out, say, okay, and then also the systems are getting smarter, so they can report to you, hey, my camera isn't working, or maybe have analytics on there that tells me that the camera has been spray painted over, so it's
Right.
working, but it's not recording anything because there's no imaging. So with the annual test and maintenance programs that we have available, that's how we can sustain the systems and elongate their life. If you take even a simple door application, for example, where I've worked in a new construction, so you build out, they occupy, and after 1 year the building starts to shift and these doors get out of
That's
sync.
right.
And if you don't fix that, you're going to shorten the life of your electric strike by years. So it's an easy thing to do. Just go and look at that visually, test it, and then you're going to elongate all of your solutions, and your ROI then just continues to
The
build.
reason I ask whether you have an internal security department in a large enterprise or an external contractor,
Right.
there tends to be high turnover in security departments. More so the contractor, let's say,
Right.
right? Who owns this after you've put it in? It's driven from the C-suite, which is fabulous, right? We
Right.
need that. But who owns it down on the day-to-day working level? Is it just security in their department, or are there other partners in that help maintain that?
On the client side, it's typically managed by the CSO, who then he has his armies of folks. So regionally, they usually have regional directors. They also work with the CIO, the infrastructure folks, so they team up very well that way. And then they drive that out through the enterprise level. And once it's in play and we have that ongoing plan in place, if you stick to the plan, you'll have a successful security program. At the
Right.
end of the day, that's how it works.
What is one of your largest enterprises? You don't have to name a name, but you can if you want to. It's up to you. And give me some scale on it. How many countries it reaches, that kind of thing.
We have many that are across the globe, thousands and thousands of readers and cameras, thousands.
And they kind of act as one overall system,
Correct.
separated by regions and countries. Things
Correct.
Like
And
that.
so what happens is they acquire another company, then we go in and we look at what that company has in place, what needs to change to get to their standards, and then start implementing the changes.
Do you have challenges with integration? Last
Yes.
year, somebody told me that as of 2014, analog cameras still outsold digital cameras.
That's unbelievable.
It is it? Right?
It's
Yeah.
hard to believe.
So you come into Company A, and they just bought Company Z, and they got a Burl tape deck and
Right.
a Pelco camera, and it's circa 1984.
And it's working.
And
they
it's
say,
working.
why do we have to replace
Exactly.
it? Right.
But how do you integrate it? How do you bring them into that? I mean, maybe there's a corporate mandate and they have to do it, but what are the technical challenges and something like that?
Well, the technical challenges are traditionally the infrastructure. So you have to outfit with encoders and routers and switchers and switch everything. Even if you can sustain, if the camera is good and solid, you can sustain that camera,
Right.
and just convert the backbone to the technology that you need it to be, and then get it to the VMS that it's going to attach to, because ultimately that's what you have to get it to anyway. You have to get it to the VMS that you're talking to. So but that is a challenge, because usually these things, and you're going to find these cameras out on a pole, and the cable has been buried and no longer, there's not accessibility in that pipe anymore, and we've run into all kinds of challenges, and it's big.
It is. I find going to these conventions that we have a lot of smart people here that have a lot of solutions. But when you take all the solutions from the manufacturing side and stick it into the operation side, that's the biggest challenge.
Right.
There's a very sad case in San Francisco a few years ago where a woman in a hospital walked off her bed and they couldn't find her, and they looked for her, and 3 weeks later they found her dead in the stairwell, locked in the stairwell. Oh, well, we didn't see her because the camera's broken. Well, when's the last time the camera worked? Oh, about a year and a half ago.
Wow.
Right? And nobody thought that, well, the camera's out, that's significant. My question was, why didn't the guard walk the stairwell once in a while, right? So yeah, the operations level is always the challenge. We have the technology,
Right.
but how do we get it in place, right? So, do you have any good stories? There's always some war stories about something that
Oh,
succeeded, or
right.
you were called in because the company waited until after they were hit for something, and then
Right.
they put a...
That's almost always, unfortunately, that's almost always the case.
Oh, is that almost always when you get a call is after something catastrophic?
Yes, because we'll try to approach them. I shouldn't say almost always, but and oftentimes that
Right.
happens, because you approach them and they say, well, if you can tell the companies where security is core to their strategy or not, because if it's not core to their strategy, they're going to wait till that devastation hits, then implement. Those are the companies that then all of a sudden it becomes mission critical.
And then it has to be done tomorrow.
Correct.
Yeah, exactly.
So yes, we have tons of those that happen, and unfortunately, we try to go in ahead of that and pre-warn them, give them our case studies and our long examples and how we can help them. But if it's not core to their strategy, they're not going to implement it.
Well, one thing I like about Honeywell is you guys have been around a long time. I didn't look it up, but Honeywell's been around since I was a kid,
Right.
in some capacity.
Very, very old.
And so you have a trusted brand
Yes.
that has some experience, and
Yes.
Honeywell's not going to go away tomorrow.
No.
Right?
What do you say? Excuse me.
What's Honeywell got on the table that they're working on that could be the latest, greatest thing? Anything in the pipeline or some of your latest products that you might think people would be interested in?
We really do have quite a few products, and the thing about what we do is we can take what we call our EBI solution, and we
Spell that for me.
EBI.
What's it stand for?
EBI.
Okay. Enterprise business something?
Something like that.
All right,
And
okay.
so what EBI does is it will actually connect not only to the security solutions, but it has hooks to other things like Energy Manager, Access Control, VMS, all kinds of things. So you can take a EBI as a core engine and incorporate that into your whole building.
So can you come in and can Honeywell system come in and integrate and work with an older proprietary system, let's say?
We can, because a lot of the Honeywell actually owns a lot of like Allerton and some of these other companies out there who have other subsystems that we can talk to. On the HVAC side, the backbone is they have common protocols that we talk to, BACnet, for example.
Okay.
So yes, we can communicate with a lot of these other solutions
See,
that are out there.
that's really important. People overlook HVAC, right? If your server room gets too hot, guess
Right.
what? You are done. You're
Right.
offline.
Correct.
And HVAC is seldom integrated with the security department. Now, at the studio we had to, because we were on the air and we're live, and if you didn't, something happened. And it happened one day, we called it Black Sunday. Fox went off the air for the X-Files.
Wow.
Cost $125,000 a minute, and they are off for 45 minutes. What happened was, we got an alarm because we had an integration. The guard saw it and said, hey, TOC, your air conditioning's not working. Don't worry about it. And we called them 3 times, and they didn't pay attention because they thought security didn't know what they were talking about, right? And they went off the air. So I'm glad to hear that we have that. And of course, Honeywell is in that space
Correct.
with thermostats.
Correct.
And have been there forever. So it's
Right.
kind of a natural
Right. It's a natural
connection.
Yeah. So you get a whole system solution, and the beauty of it is you have the core engine, and then you just bolt on when needed or where needed, where applicable. So again, we don't come in with the solution first. We look at the enterprise
Right.
and what the needs are, and then design around that. But the idea being that you have this capability to orchestrate your entire building, and a lot of times, and then also include into that the fire perspective as well. So
They're big in that space as well,
it's
right?
it's life safety. So everything connects in, and at the end of the day, when you're talking about a true plan, a holistic plan, you have to consider all of these things: energy savings, what that's going to do to your building, your HVAC, how you're protecting your people, how you're getting them in and out, the fire component. So it really is a holistic approach.
I think in the past, they were looked at as silos. Facilities handles air conditioning.
Right.
Fire and safety handles fire. It really has to be all integrated together.
It does.
You know, what do you guys do about the black hats, the hackers? They just had at Christmas time, the first successful hack of a public utility happened in the Ukraine, and really nobody heard about it. But it took out all the power for 8 hours, and this is a big problem. So how does Honeywell approach that? You know, fortifying the system.
Yeah. So connecting also back to the EBI, there's another cyber component, an InfoSec component to that. So that's just another, we can do that. We can do risk assessments in that area. Is that on? Okay, we can do risk assessments in that area as well. So that's a huge thing, because you can place a camera, an IP camera, and that's your back door in or your front door in, really.
Right. People forget that a camera is now a computer, for lack of a better term,
Correct.
on a network, right?
Or even a reader, an IP-based reader, same thing. So if you don't put it in right and set it up to protect your network, if you don't have the proper layered security in place, then you've just left yourself vulnerable to the world.
Yeah, there was a survey years ago where they found that some guy in Ukraine figured out that most passwords for cameras are password _0.
Right.
And nobody ever resets them. The installers didn't, right?
Right.
And he was logging into cameras all around the world and seeing all kinds of stuff.
Right.
So Honeywell gets that part, and that's good.
Right.
Because a lot of times the installer says, okay, I got my camera done. See you
Right.
later, buddy.
Right.
Does Honeywell have an IT department per se at an enterprise level that works with the CISO? Sometimes the CISO and the CSO, yeah, they talk, but they're still separate departments, right?
Correct. Yes. So we have entities that we work with. Honeywell, as a corporation, we do outsourcing like any other company does of certain fields, and the IT is one of those that we do. But we can leverage our own groups that we use to come in and work with us on these projects, to work with the CISO or CIO.
And you're making sure when you put your camera in, the password is not password _0.
Oh, absolutely not. No, our technicians. So we have programs where we have mandatory fields that they have to fill out and make sure that these things are being changed. And that's all part of the holistic solution. So you take this big approach and you have to drill it all the way down to that very final thing, because if you don't do that very simple thing,
It's a whole system's open, right?
Right.
So enterprise level corporations and people tend to like single point of contact.
Yes.
Maybe it's not practical if you're in 10 countries. You're not going to fly around to 10 countries, or maybe you are, right? But tell me how Honeywell represents itself with the C-suite. Is there one point of contact that drives the project and gets it all done? You know what I'm saying?
Right. So we have a couple of different approaches to that. We actually do have, and oftentimes they do want a single point of contact.
Yeah.
But the other thing that we do very well is we'll connect our C-suite to their C-suite.
Oh, that's
They're
interesting.
likely already connected. So we'll take like Dave Cody, our CEO, and he probably knows their CEO. So
Right.
they're already connected so we connect people at the appropriate levels. And so while I would be a single point of contact overarching to the whole enterprise, they still have their sub connections across the board.
Of course, yeah, to
Yes.
get it done.
Right.
And you know why they want a single point of contact, right?
Yeah, one throat to choke.
That's exactly right.
But
wow,
what
Honeywell gets it.
What I say is it's one neck to hug. That's what I say.
That's a good approach. Gail, it's been a fascinating conversation.
Thank
I'm so
you.
glad we
Yeah,
hooked up here
likewise.
at ISC West. And you're welcome to come on the show anytime you want and tell us
Thank
what's
you.
going on with Honeywell.
Thank you so
Thanks
much.
for coming on the show.
Good to be here. Thank you.